Okay, there we go. We're recording now. Hopefully you can hear me. This is going to be a quick topic. It's going to be on that term that you find in the New Testament in a particular verse. The term is in the twinkle of an eye. For those who don't bother reading anything under videos, and I know I didn't used to a long time ago, but now I tend to be one of those who uses that space underneath the videos and really fill it with the 5,000 words that you're allowed to put under there. Of course, your spaces are included in that. Usually I try to use that space up, and June 11th I posted something that was a new discovery for me, and I had said I might possibly make a video on it, and though this is just a very rough understanding, and I know that the way it works for me, that over time as I read or delve more into different topics, it will kind of collide with this one at the same time or mesh with it. And so after a while I'll just start incorporating it into my videos. And so this is just a rough, I'm going to read the comment under the last video that I posted, and then we're going to kind of look at some of that information a bit more closely and further our understanding on it as best we can at this point. Okay, so this is what I wrote under my last video, which was posted on, don't remember the date, if it was the 9th or the 10th. Might have been before that. Edit comment June 11th, 2023. What is the meaning of the term in the twinkle of an eye? So where do we find that? We find it in... Okay, now my computer's going to give me trouble. Okay, right here. It's been giving me trouble. Of course. That's the norm for me. Okay, so we find that term in 1 Corinthians 15:52 in a flash. That's a good term because we get that term used with the flashing eyes of the Leviathan. So I don't know if it's the exact same term meaning here. I never bothered to look this word up. I just noticed it was there. So in a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. We know the last trump is the 7th trumpet in Revelation. It is the daughter of Israel, or the daughters of Israel, identified as this trumpet with the key of David, which is by extension her opening her birthright. That's what it is, and we've looked at that. So this is what it says. In a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, when the mystery will be revealed. It wasn't revealed 2,000 years ago. It will be revealed at the 7th trump. For the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. That may be true, but it's not all going to happen like we think it is, which requires a great amount of study. So back to my comment. This is what I thought of. I kept thinking of in the twinkle of an eye, in the twinkle of an eye. So what is the meaning of the term in the twinkle of an eye? This is a recent find for me that I am considering on making a video for. I will see if the material adds up to enough to make one. So over time we'll kind of put it together. As I have understood, simply put, the meridian of time is the twinkle of the eye of the eclipsing dragon. So the moon, which is representing the power of darkness, the dragon's eyes, and hopefully as we go on into this study over time, that the understanding of exactly which is what will grow. So at this point we have the moon representing the powers of darkness, and it says the moon rules the night, which is what we are considered to be in at this moment, in darkness, in the night. Which is why that sun up there has to be our false light, which many says that it is a false light. It's not a real sun. But we won't go into that on this video, and maybe never, but we touch on it, over time as we make videos. As I have understood, simply put, the meridian of time is the twinkle of the eye of the eclipsing dragon. The moon, which is representing the power of darkness, the dragon's eye. This dragon has lost his sun, his light, his truth. So if we follow the signs of the occult world when they cover one of their eyes, meaning no light. So oftentimes you will see it in pictures. One of the, many of the different stars you'll find them in pictures with one of their eyes covered, left or right, whichever. So it means no light. This dragon has lost his sun when he began to circle the earth like a lost pearl, which did not belong to the covenant of darkness, which has been made with the womb of Sheol. Now, we discussed what the womb of Sheol was in the last 2 or 3 videos. We've gotten a better understanding of what that actually means. It is an image of the covenant that will be disannulled. They say we are in agreement with Sheol. The womb of Sheol is really what they're saying there. And that's found in Isaiah 28, I believe. I do not know exactly how the time span of 160 seconds, which was the duration, because this is where we're going to get the eclipsing dragon. We have to look at eclipses. Exactly that topic we got to look at. Because the dragon is called the eclipsing dragon in his own word. The Leviathan is right there. So it was 160 seconds, the August 2017 eclipse's duration. And it adds up to a twinkle, but I don't know how exactly it adds up to a twinkle of the eye. It would to us, if we were in the second heaven, and certainly here in the first heaven, even 160 seconds is not that long to us. But out there in the second heaven, where time frames, like if we look at the Lord says 1,000 years is as a day to the Lord, and that's in heaven, the third heaven, then if they're dwelling in the second heaven and looking at these signs, which is what I think these signs are for, those in the second heaven, who understands a bit more about the way that heaven actually works. We don't tend to understand a lot about heaven here on earth. In this first heaven, first, second, third heaven, is what the Bible speaks on. And we know that Satan and the fallen, supposedly, dwells in the second heaven, and yet these signs seems to be for those in the second heaven. So if 160 seconds to us is quite short, what must it be like to those in the second heaven, who is a bit closer to the actual third heaven? It must be like a twinkle to them of the eye of the dragon, is what it's like, because we get the eclipsing dragon in view. So this twinkle also may have the idea of she who is like God appearing in the twinkle of an eye in the midst, or the zenith, or the meridian of heaven to those in the second heaven, right? And we kind of get that glimpse of that, believe it or not. And this would be a terrifying glimpse. This prophecy that would unfold to those in the second heaven, I think, it would absolutely be terrifying. And we kind of get an image of it right here in the Apocrypha. We get it in 2nd Ezra 13. And it's not he who has been reserved for the end days, it's she. And we're looking at that in a minute. Okay, so it is chapter 13. Let me see. And I looked, and behold, this wind made something like the figure of not a man, a woman, come up out of the heart of the sea. And I looked, and behold, that this woman flew with the clouds of heaven. We're going to look at that term, and it definitely is with the Shulamite, or the daughter of Israel, as she was called. And wherever she turned her face to look, everything under her gaze trembled. And whenever her voice issued from her mouth, all who heard her voice melted as wax melts when it feels the fire. Ooh, look at that. So this is what we're looking at in this context. I'll shut my light off here. Is that this prophecy is for those in the second heaven who understands a bit more about the way the heavenly works than what we do here on earth. So they may have seen her in the zenith or the midst, and there is a word we're going to look at right here right quick. Strong's Hebrew 3882, Leviathan. I couldn't help but notice the first part of that is Leviathan, Levi, which kind of takes you to the idea of the false prophesying prophets and the priests of the law that you find in Malachi 2. I just couldn't help but see that. So the word here, 3882, Leviathan, means a serpent, a sea monster, or dragon. A dragon producing eclipses. Now they got in brackets mythological. So that's in Job 3:8. It's figurative also of Egypt as all engulfing. Look at that, which takes you to Psalm 74:14. So isn't it interesting, if this detail is true, that the X of the second eclipse coming up in April 8th, 2024, crosses over a place known as Carbondale, which means Little Egypt. We're in Egypt. We're supposed to part the waters, get ourselves out of here. This is about the first fruits. That's what this is about. This is about the birthing of the first fruits. This is a sign of the first fruits. That's what this is a sign for. This is important, as we have discovered that that is precisely where the image of Jesus came out of, Egypt. X marks the spot. There's only going to be so many that comes out of this. That's that small group, that 144,000 first fruits, which is the beginning of the restoration of our house back to us. So Strong's Hebrew 7335, rasam, to wink, flash. There we go with the word flash of a leviathan. And did that take us over here? Yeah. In a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. That does not happen as quickly as we've been taught that it happens. It doesn't. It does for those in the second heaven. They're on a different time frame than we are. So it's to wink. So Strong's Hebrew 7335 was Sam. To wink, flash, to twinkle the eye in mockery. Wink. This has only one occurrence in reference to what the three men are accusing Job of, having mocking eyes. We see the Leviathan as also being described with flashing eyes in Job 41. So we're told that the Leviathan is actually eclipsing our real sun. So the idea is that he lost an eye, and we get that in context with the Assyrian. That's right, the Assyrian who will be blind in one eye, and he's missing an arm, or I'll have to look that up. I will look that verse up. With the Assyrian with the eye, and I think it's a hand. He's got a crippled hand. I don't think it's a foot or leg. So we see the Leviathan is also being described with flashing eyes in Job 41, which, if you read through it, it's very allegorical in many ways to many of the events in the Old Testament when you can line them up, and you can, the more study you do. At the time, I have so much on my plate right now, I do find it hard to get a good study in. Okay. So this is how it does require much study. So Strong's Greek, this is a Greek word, 3321. Mesoranima, or niso, or anima. The zenith. So what's the zenith? Because we had hit that in context with the meridian up here when we were reading. The zenith, mid-heaven, to be in mid-heaven, when it has reached the meridian, mid-heaven. So we are talking second heaven. This is a sign for those in the second heaven. They are not. This sign is not for us in the first. It's not. Or, first. God dwells in the third, we're told. So this is a sign for those in the second heaven. And I'm sure that this sign was as fast as a twinkle in the eye, this eclipse that took place. To them. That's what I'm going to tell you. We can validate it in some ways. So mid-heaven, the highest point in the heavens, which the sun occupies at noon. Listen to this. This lines up with what I just read here in, sorry, that was my flashlight, in 2nd Ezra 13. And wherever she looks, right? So, where is it? The zenith, mid-heaven, to be in mid-heaven, when it has reached the meridian, mid-heaven, the highest point in the heavens, which the sun occupies at noon, where what is done can be seen and heard by all. How it connects to the Shulamite and Song of Songs. All right, so back here, what is done can be seen and heard by all at the meridian point. That appears to be in the second heaven at midday. So what did we get here in chapter 13 of 2nd Ezra of the Apocrypha? And I looked, and behold, this one made something like the figure of not a man. We've identified the first fruits as women. And we're going to get into this whole context. All of the understanding of these words takes you right back to the Shulamite. And I looked, and behold, this wind made something like the figure of a woman up out of the heart of the sea. And I looked, and behold, the woman flew with the clouds of heaven, and wherever she turned her face, which the sun occupies at noon, where what is done can be seen and heard by all. And flew with the clouds of heaven, and wherever she turned her face to look, everything under her gaze trembled. All right. Do you see that? So it connects to the Shulamite in Song of Songs 1:7, where she says, where it said, "Tell me, O one I love, where do you pasture your sheep? Where do you rest them at midday?" It's really she-goats. "Why should you be like a veiled woman beside the flocks of your companions?" Fellow women. Your fellow women. There we go with that term Ruth again. Verse 8, "If you do not know, O fairest of women, follow the tracks of the flock and graze your young goats, your she-goats, also known as the lilies of the covenant, who were denied in the beginning, near the tents of their shepherdesses." That's their twin. That's our twin. That's the spirit. "So I compare you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots." Why is she compared? She's coming out of Egypt. That's why. "And yet," Isaiah 14:29, "do not rejoice, all you Philistines." You know what a Philistine is? Somebody who thinks old-fashioned, old terms. But the correct definition also, or the formal definition, someone who is disdainful of artistic or intellectual values of a culture. "That the rod that struck you is broken. From the root of that snake will spring up a viper. Its fruit will be a darting." So does darting possibly mean quick as a twinkle? A venomous serpent. This means the seraphim. That's the word there, the seraphim. And I say so much study, so little time. So let's move along here. We're going to begin with the definition of twilight. That's the twinkle, twilight. A period or state of obscurity, antiquity, or gradual decline. But twilight is light produced by sunlight scattering to the upper atmosphere when the sun is below the horizon, which illuminates a lower atmosphere in the Earth's surface. The word twilight can also refer to the periods of time when this illumination occurs. Now that's not the definition I had up. Just a second. I had it. It's funny. Yeah, okay, so I have pulled it here. Okay, so it is most generally, in its most general sense, twilight is a period of time before sunrise. Okay, so we're going to look at it at sunrise. The doe of the dawn, right? That's the time frame we're looking at, a new day approaching. So the period of time before sunrise and after sunset, when we also go into darkness, in which the atmosphere is partially illuminated by the sun, being neither totally dark or completely lit. Okay. Now we're going to go to Psalm 22. What does it say? "For the director of music to the tune of the doe of the morning, a psalm of David. My God, why have you forsaken me?" This is not David saying this. This is the doe of the dawn saying it. "Why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish?" But they've got her as the deer of the dawn, or the doe of the morning, because she's the one that awakens the new day. She goes into darkness at this point, which is why she's crying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you cast me off?" So this was her cry. Now, there's another verse that lines up to that, and it's found in Psalm 108. Okay, we're trying to be quick here. So this is what it says, "Awake, harp and lyre, I will awaken the dawn. I will awaken the new day." These words here, when we look them up, watch this, and though they're not identical words, because they like to use different words, which means exactly the same thing, to really say, well, no, it's not the same word. If we look up the word lute, this is what it says. A skin bottle, skin, jar, pitcher. Do we know why that's important? We do, because we looked at it. That's the daughters holding the water of the new dawn, the dew of the dawn. But if you look up harp here, okay, it's 3658. It means a lyre. A lyre, right? So what was the lute? It also has the idea that it's a lyre too. I read that somewhere. A skin bag for liquids, for collapsing, when empty, hence a vase, as similar in shape, when full, also a lyre, as having a body of like form, bottle, pitcher, psaltery, vessel, vial. So why is this skin bottles, this skin bag so important to us? Because we found it hidden here in Isaiah 29. And this is about the daughter of Israel, Ariel, who was under siege by the liars who wanted to murder the daughters out of existence. And it says the sons inside the nation of Israel turned on her. And they said, razz her to the ground. She was to be the foundation. The righteous daughters who held the law of heaven on their tongue. We identified that. But that word is important because of verse 4. But we'll read these 4 verses. Woe to Ariel. This is Isaiah 29. We begin in verse 1. Woe to Ariel, to Ariel. That's the lioness of God. It's not a lion. It's the lioness. The city where David dwelt. It's where the daughter of Israel dwelt. Add ye year to year. Let them kill sacrifices. You were not supposed to kill animals. You weren't supposed to offer up sacrifice. You were supposed to offer up thanksgiving. And if you wanted to give a free will offering, you were allowed to do that. You were actually encouraged to do that. Yes, I will distress Ariel, and there shall be heaviness and sorrow, and it shall be unto me as an Ariel. Well, that's second Ariel. Here is the altar hearth, where we find the heifer burned to ashes, also identified as a dove, with her wings covered in gold and silver, lying as an ash heap, with the company and village of women surrounding her in Psalm 68. So the wings are identified as heavenly authority. She's being gave back her heavenly authority. And I will camp against thee round about, and I will lay siege against thee with a mount, and I will raise forts against thee. And they did. That's we discovered a fortress is akin to your argument, your defense. It's also akin to their lie this time that they set up, which was the harlot spirit, which is the foundation of the world, the false foundation and also the covenant to be disannulled in Isaiah 28. Now, this is where we get it. Verse 4, and thou shalt be brought down, and shall speak out of the ground, and thy speech shall be low out of thy dust, out of the dust. And thy voice shall be as of one that hath a familiar spirit. What's that? That's these daughters speaking truth once again. And though she's a whisper out of the ground, and thy speech shall whisper out of the dust. They hear us. That whispering, they hear us. That's right. Watch the word here. I forget exactly which word it is here. Is it ghost-like? I think the word is ghost-like. You will whisper. I know the number when I see it right there. The word would be like a medium's, like a ghost. Yeah. And you shall be, yeah, like a ghost. Yeah. Out of the dust of the earth. So it's 178. What does the word mean? A bottle made from animal skin. Now they say a necromancer. What does a necromancer do? For the spirit. Becomes a voice for it, doesn't it? Doesn't it? This is lining up to what come through. And I'll tell you, I think it was a twinkle of the dragon's eye, that eclipse, and the spirit come through for the first fruits to gather us up. So a necromancer typically speaks for a spirit. In this case, it's the Holy Spirit they're speaking for. So what do we get with Song 610? Who is this that appears like the dawn? Who is this that appears like the dawn? The beginning of the day. the twilight, the twinkling of the eye, fair as the moon, bright as the sun, majestic as the stars in procession. Look at that. We get the stars in procession. Where did we find the stars in procession, really? Daniel 7, when they're took to the Ancient of Days. And I saw in the night vision, and behold, one like the Son of Man. No, this is daughter of woman. This is Israel, being gave her birthright back, which you find that angel standing in Revelation 10, holding her book. And inside there is a little book sealed up. That's the deed, title deed to earth. It's akin to parting the waters also. I saw in the night vision, behold, one like the daughter of woman, and she came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought her near before her. And they did. Ancient of Days is her mother. That's right. But what did they do here to this procession of stars that's with the Shulamite? Watch what it says here. Which is also what we saw, the cloud of witnesses, truly, a cloud with her when she's brought to the Ancient of Days, which is also the stars being restored back to their former glory, because we see them being cast down in Daniel 8:10 and stamped upon. It grew, the harlot grew, which was really King Babylon, Satan, the devil, the image of Jesus, taking control of the world. And the religious law and law is what wrote the law in the earth. It grew until it reached the hosts of the heavens, and it threw some of the starry hosts down to the earth and trampled on them. They took their glory from them. And it says, I will get you fame and glory in every land where you were put to shame. Right? So we see that host right there that's being brought into the Ancient of Days. We do. Okay, move ahead here. Being difficult now. Because we're trying to get through some of the connections here that you're going to find for yourself. So Strong's Greek 3509, a mass of clouds. What does it mean? Come on. A dense crowd, a multitude, a great company. Now, yeah, okay, let's go back here. Because you're going to get the word here. 3509 Greek, a mass, a cloud, a dense crowd of witnesses. But it says at the very top of the notes here, with this cloud, allied with Latinubes, nebula, etc. Okay, well let's define nebula. Nebula. A nebula is a distinct luminescent part of interstellar medium, which can consist of ionized, neutral, or molecular hydrogen, and also cosmic dust. Nebulae are often star-forming regions, such as the pillars of creation in the Eagle Nebula. We're looking at the beginning of the new creation. Yeah, Romans 8. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in birthing pains, as in the pains of childbirth, right up to the present time. Why? It's waiting for the birthing of the first fruits, the daughters of Israel, restored back to their former glory, and doubled from what we understand, which is why all will have her twin. We discussed that in the last video. What does it say? So we know that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to decay and brought into the glorious freedom of the children of God. So the creation is defined as feminine, and we know she went in under bondage of the religious law and law and has her bowed down at the feet of an idol of a man as her Lord and God. That is the law. You were to bow to her law off of her tongue that came from her mother or her Ancient of Days. We know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until the present time. Verse 23, this is Romans 8, verse 23, not only that, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit. I truly believe it was the Spirit that come in the twinkle of an eye, and will be leaving on April 8th, 2024. And it's signifying the first fruits. That's what it's signifying. Not only that, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption as not sons, daughters, and the redemption of our bodies, the restoration of our house back to us. It says, if the first fruits are holy, the lump is also holy. It says, if the root is holy, so are the branches. The branches are took from the root of that tree. That's where they come from, which is your original foundation stone, denied, known as Mother Israel, and her daughters, the righteous daughters. And you were to receive the law of heaven off of their tongue who was denied. That's right. They're being restored. Our house is getting ready. Okay. So it takes us to this. In a flash and a twinkle of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. So there's the video. That's what we've got so far. We got a few little other details, but nothing, that you can't go in and find yourself in connection to all of this. Probably forgetting some things I wanted to throw in. It's really quite amazing. I really believe this is the twinkle of the eye. I believe this is a 7-year stint, and it's declaring it's the 7th trumpet sounding for a 7-year period, and it's sounding of the first fruits coming back into existence. Whether we actually go out physically with them on the eclipse of April 8th, or if it's the Spirit that actually leaves back out, and then we follow after we physically die at some future time, whenever. Unless we actually go at that particular time. I don't really see that, but it's a possibility for sure. This is what it's declaring. It is declaring the beginning of the restoration of our house back to us. And again, we looked at this verse in Zephaniah 4, and this is the beginning of the house, which will lead to the eventual capstone, which we see as feminine, the only time it's referred to as feminine. In the Old Testament, I believe, I'm pretty sure it is. Although you can find sometimes it hidden in notes that they won't mention at all. So it could be there more than once, but you really do have to look for it. So Zephaniah 4, it was verse 10. What did I do with my flashlight? Right there. Verse 10. It says, for who has despised the day of small beginnings? That's what this is. The first fruits are the first to be took out. For they shall rejoice and shall see the plummet. We're beginning the building process. The hand of Zerubbabel with those 7. They are the eyes of the Lord which run to and fro through the whole earth. That's what they are. And they're seeking their first fruits, which is the scepter, the Shiloh, the branch between Judah's feet. She is the sovereign Lord in the earth. And from the second heaven, I think we go into the second heaven as first fruits. It's a slow pulling out. I also think, this Spirit, when it come in on the first eclipse, if this is how it goes, and it was a twinkle of an eye, that it's like walking through the valley of the shadows of death. They literally, and there was one more verse. That was it. It is found. And it's allegorical terminology. I'm not sure it relates, but it certainly sounds it. And so it's Isaiah 19, and you're going to find this Isaiah 19 lines up with the Messiah there saying, you think I come to bring peace? I don't come to bring peace, but I come to bring a sword, right? And it says father will be against son, mother against daughter. And it lines up with what is said here. And we also get the Lord here that rides the clouds. Again, the burden of Egypt. See, so we're seeing the burden of Egypt. The burden of Egypt. You don't prophesy the burden of the Lord. The burden of the Lord. Or these will become your burden to deliver. So we see the burden of Egypt. We see many burdens being spoken of. Proverbs 30. There was a man there who was speaking of a vision that he had. Well, then we began to see a burden on him is what Because the Lord said, if you falsely prophesy when I sent you not, then every man's sword will become his burden, right? So here we've got the burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud. There we go with the cloud and the stars again. And shall come into Egypt. Now, so that we see when the second eclipse that crosses over America, the X gets marked right in a spot known as Carbondale, which is called Little Egypt. So we are also looking at the first fruits coming out of Egypt, the parting of the waters. So when she come in, I speculate that it isn't like walking through the shadows of death, that she actually has to part. But she's got to part him going out as well, coming out of Egypt, coming out of the land of Egypt. And you get this verse. This is pretty cool. It's 23. Isaiah 19:23. In that day shall there be a highway out of Egypt. To where? To Assyria. And the Assyrian shall come into Egypt, and the Egyptians into Assyria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. So we could go on because there's a whole chapter about the Assyrian, all right, exalting himself, and it's found in Ezekiel. It may be 33, 34. I can't remember. But we do get speaking of the Assyrians there. But here we have a highway in that day. Shall there be a highway out of Egypt into Assyria? And the Assyrians shall come into Egypt. So they're coming out of it. And the Egyptians into Assyria, and the Egyptians shall serve with the Assyrians. But watch this. In that day shall Israel be the third. Be the third with Egypt and the Assyria, and with Assyria. Even a blessing in the midst of the land. In the midst, where the Meridian appeared. 25, because these have spiritual overlays. They have historical significance. But then there's another spiritual overlay. We know that prophecy tends to be stacked. So 25, whom the Lord of hosts shall bless, saying, blessed be Egypt, my people, and Assyria, the work of my hands, and Israel, mine inheritance. You see how it kind of lines up with what's going on today in connection to those two particular eclipses. And I'm going to tell you, it's the seventh trumpet sounding. It is. And she's taking back her birthright. And this 7-year stint is concerning the first fruits and the rebirth of that scepter that the Lord will rule through. It's a process of time, through the process of time, how this is coming down. So we see the plummet stone in the hand of Zerubbabel, however you want to say it. It's spelled both ways. And that means foreigner in Babylon. So this is Babylon in many ways, but it's interesting that X crosses over Little Egypt, isn't it? So it's just fascinating stuff. I'm going to continue. I'll inevitably hit on some of this information. The Spirit tends to work that way with me anyway. So that's our video. It's not too long. Good. So, thanks for watching, both. Thanks for watching. I pray you're blessed with an abundance of truth, of the pure water, the truth of God. I hope y'all have a really nice day as well. And I hope you share the video, spread the truth around. And thanks for watching.